Welcome to the Midlife Mom podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Lewis. I'm a coach for midlife moms with a background as a mental health therapist. I help midlife moms who are feeling lost and stuck to be able to discover and create their dream midlife. Let's do this. Hello, welcome back to the Midlife Mom podcast. At the time of this recording, it is officially the first day of fall here in Northwest Arkansas where I live. And there's definitely signs of fall with the leaf colors starting to change, which is so fun for me. I grew up in Arizona and we would get a few leaf color changes, but it wasn't until like January timeframe. It was very minimal because we didn't have a lot of trees because it's cactus. So it is so fun for me to live somewhere where there's a ton of trees and to see the leaves turn color and just to see the majestic canvas of art that is all around me. I love it. Now, with that being said, it's very interesting because it did start to cool off here and then it got in the 90s again. So my husband and I did one more time at the lake yesterday and did a little bit of kayaking. But it is supposed to get down into the highs for 70s, which is probably more the typical fall time weather next week. So I just kind of embrace whatever's coming my way. Now, the title for this podcast, How to Embrace the Power of Receiving, this is a little bit different. So hear me out as I explain how this topic evolved for me in my mind. I thought about us moms and how from the time we bring home that sweet little baby for the very first time, and we now have this new sense of purpose with taking care of this baby. This baby depends on us for everything. And how we start to get really good at giving at that time. We get really good at giving to this little baby, and as more children come, if they do, of giving to those children as well. When we start this journey in motherhood, there's new demands that are placed on us for sure. And it impacts things like our sleep and our eating and our routines and our health and sometimes connections with other people. And we choose this, right? This is why we become moms. We know that we're going to be giving to these little people and helping to raise them. And as our children grow or our family size grows, the demands increase for sure. And as we give to our family, oftentimes we're also giving in other areas of our lives. And we might do things like volunteer at school or within the community, or maybe for our church community. Maybe we are helping with running a business, or we are giving to an employer. We also might help and give support to friends, neighbors, family members, and the list could go on. And of course, we do these things because most of the time we're wanting to do them, and it's also a lot of giving from us. And sometimes, at least in my experience, all of this giving and sometimes not receiving can be very overwhelming and can also lead to burnout. What I have seen, again, for myself and with the women I have worked with, is that we are often very willing, or we just do in giving. Like that's just kind of what we do is we give. But my question is, how willing are we to receive in return? And what does it even look like for us to receive? Receiving could look different depending on the situation, but here's a few ideas on what it can look like. Receiving could be a compliment. Someone says, "I like your dress," or "I like the way you cleaned your house," or "I like the way you decorated that wall," whatever it is, a compliment of some sort. We could also receive a gift from somebody, a child, a friend, coworker, family member, we might receive service. Sometimes after we have had a baby, we actually do need to receive for ourselves also, because we are giving to that little baby and we are exhausted. Or there's other times in our lives where we are needing service given to us because we are giving so much. Sometimes receiving could even be something like a smile, and seeing someone smile at you and receiving that, taking that in, this smile that this person gave you. It could be receiving love. We also can practice receiving inspiration or guidance from God. We might receive financially. Again, that could be a gift, or maybe it's a check or a bank deposit from our work. Do you ever think about that when you have income come in to help provide for your living, your existence, that with that money that comes in, that's a way to practice receiving when that money comes in that supports us. So why is it hard for us as moms to receive sometimes? And I thought about there might be a few reasons why. It might be maybe our upbringing, and maybe we were in situations where we had to give a lot because that's what was needed in the family. It also could be it's hard for us to receive because we feel guilty.
We become so used to giving that it's really hard for us to receive. We feel guilty, like, oh, we should be the one that's giving, not necessarily receiving. And sometimes it's just uncomfortable to receive, like having someone give you a gift and be the center of attention. I know for me, when I am given gifts, it's uncomfortable for me to have people watching me as I open that gift. And so in those situations, it's definitely hard for me to receive. I appreciate it and I am very grateful for it, but I notice that discomfort. There also could be thoughts that block us from receiving, such as, I don't deserve this. So are there thoughts that come up that block that receiving or make it uncomfortable to receive? I was thinking about this podcast topic, and I was thinking about how it is with my husband and I currently. So we are at a stage in our lives where, we are empty nesters, just had our youngest go back to school, and we're sharing a lot more of the workload around our home. And it used to be for a long time that I did all of this. I did the cooking, I did the cleaning, I did the laundry, I did all the, a lot of the stuff with the kids. And that was because that's how we decided to break it up with the task, because he was working a lot and he was providing for us. And so I did a lot of those things. So now with us both working, we are there's kind of become this natural division of the tasks that's happening without us necessarily sitting down and saying, okay, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this. It's just kind of happening. And I've noticed that it's a little bit hard for me to accept this or receive my husband's help. And it's like, I actually really, really, really want it, but I do notice a discomfort. Like there are different times that I will be working and he'll ask me when my lunch break is, and he will be preparing lunch. So when I have a break, he has lunch ready for me. That's very different for me. And so I'm working on practicing receiving that service to me, because that's what he's choosing to do. He also, it was kind of funny the other morning, I woke up a little bit later than he did, and he had noticed the bathroom need cleaned. And he was up that morning cleaning the bathroom. And that's not totally common for him to do that. If I was to ask him, hey, would you mind cleaning the bathrooms? He'd totally do it. But he's not as detail oriented as I am about noticing things. So like I'm going to notice things need clean way before he does most of the time, just because my eye kind of zeroes in on that. And he saw that it needed done and he just did it. And I woke up and he'd said, I think the cleaning supplies were out. And he's like, yeah, I noticed this needed cleaned and I did it. And I was like, wow, thank you so much. And I even, just the way my days started off felt so much better of knowing that that had been done. And so again, needing to practice receiving that service towards me and for us in general, really. He also sometimes will do things like help with the laundry and the grocery shopping, which I always did those things. And so it's really different for me to have that help and just to practice receiving it. I think a lot of it comes down to me just having expectations that I should be the one doing it because I did it in the past. And so I'm needing to change that. Again, I'm emphasizing the practice of embracing receiving in my life. Sometimes I am not noticing the things that God is giving me and how there's so much in my life. I mean, on a daily basis, God is giving things to me. And am I practicing receiving that and seeing that? Yes, I do. And there's also sometimes that I may miss it, or I may not be practicing it as receiving it, of actively thinking to myself, God's given this to you, let's practice receiving it. As I mentioned earlier, I've been uncomfortable with getting gifts, especially when my kids give me gifts, because there was this notion that because I'm the parent, I should be the one giving gifts. And it's like, no, that's not the way it works. Sometimes our kids want to give gifts to us. And so, especially like when they're younger, it's like we are the ones giving gifts to them because it's not like they are going to go out and buy gifts. Although there are times that kids definitely give us gifts as related to things that they make and whatnot. So they are practicing giving gifts in a different kind of way. And we get to practice receiving that from our children, whatever age that they are at. When we are in loving and supportive relationships, there should be that constant flow of giving and receiving. Kind of like I was describing a second ago with my husband and our relationship right now, practicing that receiving, but also the giving and letting it be a flow. It goes in, it goes out. That's the way it is. There's always this flow of giving and receiving, and being aware that we can receive and practice that receiving and not just the giving. So if receiving is a challenge for you, what would it look like to change this? How could you practice receiving or even noticing when you are being given something, whatever it is, and practice that thought of like, oh, I'm receiving this gift from this person. Again, it may not be a material gift. It could be a smile, a compliment, service, and practicing receiving that with gratitude. Are there areas in your life that you can let go of and let somebody else support you? Sometimes it's hard for us to receive service and help because it may be uncomfortable, but are there areas where maybe you could practice receiving more of that? Are there any mind shifts that need to happen? Are there any thoughts that you have about receiving? That would be interesting to notice, like to write down when I'm receiving or when someone is giving me something, what does it feel like for me? Or what am I thinking? And to write that down just to even have awareness. Are there some underlying thoughts that might be blocking you from receiving? This can actually be a really powerful process, as it can open up that flow that I described a minute ago of giving and receiving, to really open that up and let that be a flow that happens in your life. I want you to know I'm totally practicing this with you, as this is something I realize is a challenge for me to practice receiving. I mean, it's like I want to receive. There's things that I want, like when I pray, I ask for certain things. And when I get them, am I noticing that that's coming in? And sometimes, again, like I said, it can be very uncomfortable for me. So I'm actively practicing this process with you. So I encourage you to be aware if this is something that is uncomfortable for you or is maybe a challenge, to practice receiving this week. And I will see you next week on the podcast. If you're enjoying what you are learning on this podcast and would like to learn more about working with me as your coach, you can message me at midlifemomcoach@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. Midlife Mom Coach is my handle. We'll see you next time on the podcast.